Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So it is that time of the year. It's the month of June, and in the month of June, well, we typically rank up everything, just like in December. And this time around, we're going to start with 2025 champions ranked. Then I will re-rank 2024 champions. I'm going to go over I'm going to rank each class according to their relative strength. Then, obviously, we're going to take a look at each class individually. We're going to look at, each class champions, top 20 list, and a few more top lists that might be surprising to some of you. But we are starting right here, right now, with 2025 champions. And again, mandatory 50,000 disclaimers here, because regardless of what I say, people still never listen. Number one, this is still my personal opinion on the game, mixed in with current game relevance and trends. There is no way for any single person to make like a quote-unquote objective list, especially without having access to statistics and analytics that only Kebab has. Therefore, personal preferences, playstyles, the game modes that we play obviously do play a role the way we view each champion. I am not ranking the buffed champions or, newly released champions, 7 stars or anything like that. These are just new champion releases, as we can see here, from 2025. Additionally, there is and has long been this argument for BG brain rot. And I have tried my utmost best to explain that. What do you rank up champions for? As in, I can explain what I rank up champions for, what I recommend other people rank up champions for, and what most of the competitive players rank up champions for. And those are the competitive game scenarios. For instance, I don't need a rank 4 champion for any story content. I have never once needed the rank 4 champion or somebody to be rank 4 for any endgame content thus far. Like Necropolis. Rank 2s, rank 3s, just fine, no issues. Rank 2, Deathless She-Hulk destroyed the entire lane. Didn't even need rank 3 her. What else I don't need? Epoch of Pain and the like stuff. Need rank 3 for that, as long as you have a good counter. If it is rank 3, that's nice. So that's the first thing. I don't think there's any reason to rank up champions for content that, I don't feel pressured. I don't feel like I have the need to have like a rank 4 7 star in order to be able to complete that content at all. So the needs-based arguments one. 2 is the return on investment. For rank up champions, that will help me get more catalysts and rank up further more champions, and that, in my opinion, is like a solid way to progress in the game and the logical course of action to do. Number 3, the ranks on the champions are only really all that important when it comes to them having strength in relative to the opposing champions, which is the competitive game modes. In other words, in these lists, I value the most those champions who we use when losing matters. Be that Alliance War, be that Battlegrounds. Because those are the competitive game modes where you do not get to always win. You do not get to have 50,000 replays and restarts where you can't just chug in a revive and go again. If you're slower than your opponent, you lose. If you die, you lose. So on and so forth. So that is ultimately what gives these champions value, in my opinion. Champions that we use when losing matters is the best way I can explain that. That said, I think at this point, any champion released in the game can have a ton of use for a newer player that's progressing through the game or having fun in incursions or wanting to have fun in side quests. Any champion released in the last several years, just about. Let me double check on 2024 champions real quick, but I think anybody in the last couple of years for sure. Do you have anybody that's like absolute... Okay, Enchantress on offense is absolutely rubbish. That's just garbage. Do not touch Enchantress if you don't play competitive game modes. Other than that, after the tune-ups and all that, Deathless Vision's garbage. He's getting a buff. Yeah, I think any champion just about has their uses. So, even if the champion is in the bottom spot, it doesn't mean that they are completely worthless. You'll probably be able to do something with them. Now that all that is said and done. Final bit. 2 disclaimers. 2 champions that are disqualified. The first champion that's disqualified from the rankings, Caroline Dean. She's just not out yet. Simple. Like, I'm already kind of making a leap of faith ranking Nico Minoru, because obviously we have very, very little experience with her, and it's not a well-argumented ranking in my opinion, but, you know, subject to change. But Caroline Dean's just not out even yet, so we'll see about that. When, you know, time goes and when we do end of the year rankings, I'll rank her for sure. Other champion that I decided against ranking, I'll tell you where I would place her. I would place her as 4th in this list, as I initially did. And then I chose to take her out. Because as of right now, extremely small amount of people has her. And yeah. And nobody's going to be able to get her if you haven't got her already. Like, at the moment, there are 2 groups of people. People who have her and have ranked her up and know exactly how much value they put in her. And people who don't have her. So far, at the moment, there are no additional ways to acquire her, like, ever coming, as far as we know. Eventually, I'm sure we will get a chance to get her as well, but at the moment, that's not the case. So she's not a regular release character. She's impossible to acquire at this point. Again, I would probably put her in spot number 4, because, you know, anybody who does have her did take her to rank 3 minimum, if not rank 4. You know, she's borderline autoban. But I still value her less as a champion as some others here on the list, and I'll explain that a bit later. But I would have placed her in spot number 4 for now. So now, finally, let's get down to the business. And bottom 2 positions to me are quite clear right now. And top 3 positions to me were also quite clear right now. Everything in the middle, I think, is very subject to debate, especially spots number 6, 7, and 8. I think those were jungling around in my head, and I'm sure that some of you could potentially sway me to rank them differently. But here we go. So we're gonna start spot number 10, Falcon. There's just no nice way to say it. He's a champion that nobody cares about. Unlike the previous years, when, you know, we had release of Psycho Man and Captain Britain and, you know, champions like Silver Sable and stuff, rebuff. He's not even that bad. No. He's got stuff going for him. He's got his little slow happening. He's got his extra damage that he builds with his traumas and whatnot. And, you know, he's a nifty little champion. His access to some debilitate. Nobody cares. His damage is His utility is Lifestyle loops are His defensive value is non-existent. You know, I'm sure, again, if you pull him and if you like him, you're gonna find use for him. Thing is, just about nobody cares for him and nobody tries to find use for him because there are just much better champions out there for just about everything that he is or that he can do. Again, I'm sure Kabam is going to come up with some set of nodes where he's going to be one of the best options or something like that. As it stands right now, that's about it. It's just like a mid definitionally mid champion, like, in the grand scheme of things. Whatever. Like, whatever. That's simple as that. And again, I'm sure that any champion that I badmouth in this video is somebody's favorite champion. But for Falcon to be somebody's favorite champion, I think the odds are even worse than for Hawkeye to be somebody's favorite Avenger. It's just, nobody's calling, help me, save me, Hawkeye. And, yeah, fine, whatever. Falcon is one of the champions released this year. Yeah, let's move on. Controversial, I know. Spot number 9. I'm getting to Bastion. And I have my reasons. And I'm sure a lot of people will hate. But again, keep in mind that I think, other than Falcon, I think every other champion has, good potential to be used in, just about every metagame scenario. So again, for 7, 8, and 9, oh no, actually Bastion is kind of a bit low. But Bastion is still a good champion, for sure. And I'm sure that people are going to tell me that, Bastion is this and amazing and that amazing and he's so cool. In reality, Bastion has a very big problem right now in the game. Bastion's problem in the game is Jack. And whilst Bastion looks cooler, it instinctively you'd think that Bastion's better because he has like kick-ass comic character and all that. In reality, for competitive play, for especially Battlegrounds, anything you would want to do with Bastion, Jack's kind of better and he covers more matchups that you care about. In theory, again, it's the complete opposite. You'd think that disintegration and relying on disintegration damage is the better play because, nobody's immune to it and stuff. But in practice, Jack just does just about all the target matches better. He's like a better domino counter. I believe he's better onslaught counter or equally good. Now, Jack is, counter to Captain Britain, which Bastion is as well, but Jack's just better at that. And they do similar things. The immunity to earth controls, the parry non-projectiles. Jack just seems to be doing all of that stuff for most part. And Bastion's kind of like rigid rotation, relying more on those heavy attacks and stuff. So Bastion's better at taking bullseye. I'll give him that, but it's not like he's particularly great for that. I think he's good. But I don't think, so far he has made like any impression. And I do have Bastion as a 6-star rank 6 champion. I did try him out in like several metas, but it's just not kind of good enough. And then I messed around with him and played here and there, and he's fine. He's good. And I just don't think he's kind of good enough for competitive gameplay. I think Bastion's probably better for a lot of story content stuff. But again, as I explained before, that's not why I invest rank up materials in the champion. So I think genuinely they're very, very similar. I just think Jack's better for the important matchups. So I'd pick Jack over him, and yeah, Bastion hasn't made that much of an impact. And of course, neither one of them has like any defensive use. Right, let's move on. Spot number 8. I'm going to Gentle. And Gentle, again, initially I was fairly kind of harsh to him. And whilst much of the criticism still remains the same for Gentle, one thing that's helping him a lot is that he is better defensively than, initially it would necessarily seem. And his ability to switch off opponents' crits, basically, and then going unstoppable, and opponents needing an unstoppable counter, combine that with some, pesky nodes and abilities, been doing fairly good. And he definitely has kind of like increased his stock value, in my opinion. And again, in between Gentle and the next two champions, I think it's very, very close. In fact, I actually thought about placing Gentle slightly higher for one spot. Or maybe I should have. But his, I think, offensive range is quite limited for what you'd expect from a mutant these days. He's kind of being helped by his defensive abilities. But the biggest thing that I think Gentle has had and working for him is not necessarily that he's particularly good. It's that he's had like very meta-friendly circumstances. And Gentle is definitely a type of champion that I already at this point, like if I don't particularly care about Bastion, then I do about Gentle. In fact, Gentle was meant to go higher. Gentle was definitely meant to go higher. That's what I'm saying. These three champions, Gentle is meant to go here. There you go. These three champions, it's Jean Grey and Gentle. I think Jean Grey has higher potential. I think Gentle has kind of done more. I think that is the correct order in between them. Because I was tossing and turning in between them, and I think Jean definitely has higher potential. I think both of them has moderate good defensive value. Both of them can stall out the fight. They can make opponent mess up with their mechanics. And they're kind of similar in that aspect. In reality, I do think Jean will be better offensively, but I think Jean has been present a lot less. I think we have seen a lot less from Jean. I think that's why I'm going to put Jean under. Because whilst Gentle has already been active in several metas, and you know, you have lost rounds to Gentle or won rounds with Gentle, and he's been putting in work. And Gentle was a very, very good Alliance War offensive champion, and he was like basically specifically designed for one of the bullseye fights there. And he's already kind of has had value. And with Jean, I don't think we have seen enough. So I'm gonna put Jean in spot number 8. And Gentle is gonna go higher. I think Jean, yeah, goes down. I think she's gonna go up for what it's worth. I think she ages well enough. She's gonna be good dual threat champion with fairly good damage, fairly good defense. Not necessarily like exceptional either, but quite good. And yeah, I do think she has higher potential ceiling than Gentle does. But I just think Gentle at this point in time has done more and is more present in the game. So I'm going to put Gentle slightly higher. So there you go. Kind of 2 champion releases in the price for 1. And then we have Lumatrix. And initially I had Lumatrix actually lower under Jean and Gentle. And again, here's the difference between Dark Phoenix and Lumatrix. Because both of them are kind of paid exclusive characters, which I really don't like that Kabam has started doing. But the thing with Lumatrix is he's significantly cheaper. Therefore, significantly larger amount of players do have him. Also, we know for a fact that idols will enter the base pool. That's why he's included in champion rankings. And when it comes to Lumatrix, initially I was a bit more skeptical of him. But in reality, he's just been going from strength to strength to strength. He is a solid dual purpose champion now, and he can be very annoying on defense. There are, you know, certain matchups that absolutely do run through him like a noodle, like Juggernaut, for instance. But then again, Juggernaut does that to a whole bunch of champions, so that shouldn't really count. But, you know, there are still a handful of champions that do him very, very well. But I can't deny the fact that I have won a ton of Balgrand's matches with this little chap. But the coolest thing about Lumatrix is that he can do a ton of random matchups very well. And that's why he's impressing me, because he's kind of breaking the class wheel as well. And the matchups he does well are completely random. They're not necessarily going to be, let's say, for the science class. For instance, you know, to throw down somebody like Thing, he's not necessarily going to be the best. He can be okay, but, you know, he's far from close to the best option. Then Photon, he can do Photon well, but it's not a super easy fight. You need to be quite good with Gentle to do the Photon fight. But then again, at the same time, destroying somebody like Dust with class disadvantage, super easy with Gentle. Sorry, not with Gentle, super easy with Lumatrix. Destroying somebody like Red Skull or Sentinel, super easy with him. Those crit resistances, that tankiness doesn't really matter for the guaranteed crits and the massive damage that he's putting out. And yeah, it's like random matchups like, you know, Rintra. He's just shooting random champions across the class wheel, and he's doing quite a good job of that. Additionally, it does help that he's incredibly fun to play, and I think he's quite solid. Good thing about him is that he does not need to be awakened. Be very, very good. That awakened ability is kind of primarily defensive, but it hardly ever comes into play anyways. But yeah, you know, ton of weight, ton of miss mechanics, ability to be super aggressive, and access to guaranteed crits, passive furies, tracking, so you can bypass miss. That's also quite useful at times. And yeah, I quite like that. And I think he has kind of deserved his spot here. There we go. Next up. Number 5, right? Next up. It's gotta be Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman, again, I don't think she has showcased her full set of abilities yet and full set of uses because she's fairly new. Not too many people do have her. she's one of those champions you can still see people use at 6-star, which I think is quite cool. It kind of speaks volumes about her quality. And Sanslas definitely needs more defenders, and she's a solid like dual purpose champion. Obviously, because she's not exclusively a defender, she is both good offensively and defensively. You can, mitigate her defensive threats, obviously with a weight counter. That's making it a lot easier. But then still, you do always want to push her at level 2 because you never want to take that level 1 in the block. Very good friends with an equity. That weight in general is very, very annoying. And yeah, defensively, I think she poses a fairly balanced, good, solid ability set. And then on attack, she's quite cool. She's power stingy. I like the fact that she inflicts effectively her shocks, but she doesn't care about shocks or shock immunity, so that's nice. Shocks deal a burst of energy damage, but, if opponent is shock immune, then it just doesn't matter. So yeah, she's also immune to neutralize, which is fairly rare and very nice and helpful. Immune to poison, power steal, nice. All personal effects except stun and power gain are paused during any special attack. And yeah, she's also a science champion that has access to buffs. Quite nice, in my opinion. Yeah, I do want to see more of her. Could have potential to maybe be a bit higher. I hope she does well. But at the moment, I do have fairly high expectations of Spider-Woman. Quite annoying to face, for sure. One of those champions, when an opponent drafts, you're just going to have a bad time because you need to have a counter for her, and they could just turn around and, nuke a random matchup with her. She's not as fast as Pig is. Pig is still Pig is, I think, top 3 science champion at the moment, honestly. But I do value her quite highly too. So there we go. Next up, spot number 4. Again, that would be Nico. And Nico is hard to rank, right? She's just arrived in the contest. But from what I have seen so far, I think it is extremely unlikely that she'll be a bust. She is a dual purpose champion, like many of the ones recently. She has quite annoying abilities to work around as a defender. And obviously, we will learn to nuke her with our Hulks and, a bunch of other champions, or take fairly minor poison damage. And I do think, obviously, her defensive value overall is going to fall down from what it is right now. But the fact that she's just picture-made counter to one of the biggest pay-to-win defenders right now. And then she also happens to be one of the best counters for arguably still the best defender in the game, which is Serpent. Or one of the best defenders. And then, obviously, the fact that she can do just about every cosmic champion. It's very hard for me to see MCOC where Nico isn't a significant champion within the next year or more. She's built very well. Buff immunities, very powerful ability. Again, she does have the dual purpose threat, even if it's not the most significant. Just the fact that, I'm going to talk bad about my girl now. Chatra, or Tiger, for instance. It is much better in Balrog specifically, to draft somebody like Nico than, let's say, Chatra initially. Because if you can't use her offensively, you can throw her in defense and still get some good results in, right? But with champions who have 0 defensive value, that's much more committed type of draft pick. And for the rest of the game as well, I think she's built very well to be a great questing champion. Just like a handful of other ones before here. But Nico definitely. She can regen a ton, right? And that adrenaline can provide massive regeneration for her in questing scenarios as well. And the pre-fights I think are OP with the current game structure and layout. The weakening factor for her is the fact that she can only use them once in a quest. But again, in many of the game modes, many of the places, it wouldn't matter if it's Epoch of Pain, just with all of them, or if it's new war format, or even in the old war format, when you bring in a champion, typically bring in for like 1 or 2 fights, and you have fairly free access to all that. And so far, again, this is definitely not the best kind of like researched from experience type of placement. This is me giving her quite a lot of benefit of doubt. Again, it's very hard for me to see MCOC where she isn't doing very, very well the next year or a bit more. Right, so the top 3 then. And in 3rd place, I'm putting in Zola. Just nasty. Very nasty on defense. Now, we are a lot better at fighting Zola now than we used to be when he came out. And I am sure we're going to be getting more counters. Here's the problem with Zola. Well, nobody does him. There are like 2 champions that can do him quick so far in the game. Like, reasonably quick. Like, I think Starhand's Spider-Man, if you have like perfect fight, can do him in like 45-50 seconds. Again, with Starkey, the fight isn't easy. He can mess up for sure against this guy. And things need to go well. Starkey is one of the best counters for him as well. And another champion that can do him fast is Tiger, but again, it's only if AI cooperates, and it's only if you have like picture perfect fight. Other than that, this guy's always putting up a fight. And I think that's exactly what gives him a ton of value, because it's not like he doesn't have counters. He can use jugs, but that's typically like nearly 60 seconds, and you end up taking like 5 to 10% of your health as damage. You can use Deathless Thanos, but that's similar. And same will go for just about everyone. You can like bilk him, but that takes a while. And he's just built in such an annoying way. I think he's very, very valuable. There's no other way to put it. I think right now, because still of the recency power boost, because there's this thing in MCOC when any champion that's just come out is approximately twice as good of a defender as he will be within 6 months. Right? Or within like a year. Because we slowly but surely get to know how to fight them. That's 1. And 2, more and more counters get released. And he's still kind of on the come off for that. I do expect him to get less threatening and intimidating in the future. But it's kind of a Serpent. Serpent used to be you lose the round automatically, or you're going to get KO'd automatically. Now Serpent is, number 1, you better have a very good counter. Number 2, depending on the metas, it can still be a very hard fight. Number 3, most of the time it isn't particularly fast to kill a Serpent compared to many other defenders like Enchantress and Bullseye and so forth. And Zola's definition of that, man. He can be so hard and nasty to get down. So I think there is an argument for placing him higher, except, again, I'm kind of going in a bit of leap of faith here with my 2nd round pick, which is Yelena. I think Yelena does that. I think Yelena does what Zola does, basically, just with less counters and more annoying abilities and better offensively. And Zola has some limited use offensively, realistically. Hardly ever put him down. Yelena is kind of similar, except I do think she's better on attack than Zola is. And all that said and done, I do think that she's also incredibly nasty in defense. What's the best way to kind of put it? I didn't have 6-star Zola for like forever. And obviously Yelena just came out. And I grinded for Yelena. And I pulled Zola. And I was like thinking, should I rank up my 6-star Zola or not? For the very tail end of the last meta. When I grinded for Yelena, I knew for a fact I will be ranking her because she is an autoban. Because even in the last meta, where many champions did have effectively a 40% Fury up the entire time, he was holding in there, and there is just about no one that can take down very, very fast, even as 6-star. I think fastest somebody killed my Yelena was like 49 seconds as a 6-star. That's insane. Like, and if she would be a 7-star rank 3, 7-star rank 4, I think not. And there we go. She has just such an annoying set of abilities that completely switches off like any type of furies or attack modifications. And yeah, obviously, again, just like I explained with Zola, I do think she's going to be easier to handle eventually once we, are much more comfortable fighting her, once we get more counters. But that's why I also kind of like her above Zola, because I do think there's a better chance of her being, decently viable offensively. And, having half decent matchups where she can do well enough to be considered potentially a dual threat type champion. Potentially similar to Photon in a sense. But there we go. I do think, Yelena deserves that spot. And arguably, in future, it might be silly not to give her top 1 spot. I genuinely believe that Yelena has the potential to be the best champion of the year. Especially so far. But I'm going to give the number 1 spot to Okoye. And that was fairly easy to me. She is Kabam's problem child. She is the bald-headed demon. She does some filthy things. And she's a terrifying champion for opponent to have access to. Even as a 6-star on a personal level, I do use her a ton. And there isn't a single other offensive champion that kind of competes as a 6-star. The fact that a 6-star ascending champion has this type of damage, and I'm not just talking about battlegrounds, even though if I was, in my opinion, that would be enough, but I'm not. Okoye is so crazy, kind of easy to use, and good at what she does, that I use a 6-star champion in my alliance quest runs. Like, I have 7-star rank 3s, I have 7-star rank 4s that I could bring in. I use a 6-star just because she's better, faster, easier to use, and less hassle. And I'm obviously fearful for what Kabam is going to do to her, because her rebalancing is coming soon. I hope they do not touch her too much. But there's very little not to like about the champion. And if you ask me, from champion design standpoint, she's also like a breath of fresh air, but I don't feel like I need to be timer watching every 5 seconds. Like, because so many of the champions that Kabam creates, including some that we discussed here, it feels like I'm fighting with the champion's hit more than I am fighting against my opponents. I hope that makes sense to you. I hope that makes sense to some of you. But it genuinely feels like I'm trying to piece together a puzzle, quickly enough and be good enough and have AI cooperate with me to make my champion work more so than I'm trying to counter the opponent. I am absolutely not a fan of those champions where you need to text-wise throw 3 heavy attacks, intercept opponent, 8 times, throw a level 1, get to level 2, and then there's going to be a big burst of damage. I don't like that. I think it's unnecessary. I think it's overcomplicated in most cases. I think that actively makes the champion worse. The thing that I love about Okoye is the same thing I love about Juggernaut. It's the same thing I love about many of the older champions in the game. You can use level 1, it's going to do one thing. Use level 2, it's going to do the other thing. Level 2 has more damage, but level 1 is still decently good damage. So there's a bit of a trade-off for which utility you choose to go with. But effectively, hit the opponent, don't get hit, choose what you want your champion to do, and you're good. And that's, the type of champion I typically enjoy. I think this game is so complicated with so many ability kits. It's a very refreshing change of pace. Fairly simple champions. Hit the opponent, drop a level 1 or drop a level 2, and you're good. You can weave in a heavy attack if you want for some bonus damage. Perfect. That's what I love about Okoye too. That is obviously not to mention the fact that she melts so many things. So at the moment, so far, I do think Okoye is the best champion. That might change by end of the year. We'll see how well she does against, some of the top defenders, so on and so forth. What they do to her with the balancing, what's going to happen with all the lock champions, which Okoye is one of, and all that stuff. But right now, I do think Okoye is the most powerful champion that Kebab has released this year. So there you go. That is my top list. Ta-da! 2025 champions. Number 1, Okoye. Number 2, Yelena, so far. Number 3, Zola. Number 4 would be Nico, in my opinion. Again, that's fairly generous, I know. Spider-Woman, Lumatrix, Gentle, Jean Grey, Bastion, and the New Falcon. New Falcon is definitely the worst, man. New Falcon is not even close. If, like, you know, Bastion, Jean Grey, Gentle, Lumatrix, Spider-Woman, Nico, Zola, Yelena, Okoye, all of those are champions that I want. Falcon 100% is a champion I would not care if I never get. It's just whatever. But okay. And then obviously Dark Phoenix and Caroline Dean. Dark Phoenix would be, at the moment, I think, just below Zola. And that's the one thing that I promised I'll explain to you guys. Why? And the answer there is, I think, fairly simple. I think Zola is more valuable because, number 1, against Dark Phoenix, you already have champs that nuke her down in like 30 to 40 seconds. Like, you know, you have Hood, you have the Diablo, Spiral can be very, very, very good against her. And it's much easier to nuke down Dark Phoenix than it is to nuke down Zola so far. So that's one. But 2, why I think Zola is better defender than Dark Phoenix is. Because, again, for most part, against Zola, I did the nuking thing. Oh yeah, and well, that is a big part of it. And yeah, I just think Zola is much harder to nuke. His ability is probably gonna make him survive longer. And there we go. Dark Phoenix really does just remind me of 2025 version of Electro. That's about it. I do like Dark Phoenix better offensively, though, especially for long fights. But okay. And yeah, Caroline Dean isn't ranked yet. But hey, that's it for now. More ranking videos coming. Let me know if you do have some ideas for perhaps a bit out there ranking video too. But the very next video is going to be 2024 champions re-ranked from the worst one to the best one. It's going to be split in 2 videos. Catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about